Thanks. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I hope you're having a good time at the summit. And I know I see a few of you who I've met already, and I've had some pretty good conversations. Thanks, everybody, for coming out today. Quickly, how many of you are familiar with AWeber? Wow. Okay. That's great. Well, it's great to see all of you. I've been with AWeber just since last summer, so not even a year. Most of you already know what we do. Email is obviously the core of our business, email service provider. We are dealing with a lot of social media integrations, and we're doing more with other kinds of integrations with our open source API. So hopefully if you guys are using us, you're getting a lot out of the service, and hopefully this presentation will cover a lot of ways and ideas that you can use to get even more to grow your lists and to help grow your business. Just see if this works, which it does. A little bit about me, very briefly. I've been involved in email marketing since about '99. I've managed a couple of e-newsletters, the Sales and Marketing Report, the Marketing Experiments Journal. I now handle the affiliate marketing e-newsletter for AWeber. Everyone here mentioned, not everyone, but a lot of hands went up saying you're familiar with AWeber. How many of you are actually affiliates of ours? Okay, great. Be happy to talk with anybody afterwards about what we're doing with our affiliate program. If that's of interest to you, that would be something I'd be happy to share afterwards and answer any questions. We've had an in-house program running for several years, and I'm trying to work on ways to make that even more fulfilling for you guys. So I definitely want to hear some ideas. If you have some time afterwards, please catch up with me, and let's get the conversation going here. List building, and what we're going to talk about here today, using email strategies and using social media strategies and using both of those together, is really going to be at the heart of how you're building your lists. So as many of you probably know, there are tons of different tactics and techniques and things that you can use, but what it really is all going to come down to at the very basic level is content, because if you don't have a lot of the content that's going to keep people coming to sign up for your list and coming back to your list building efforts are really going to find themselves in a position of churn. So while we're going to look at a lot of different examples here and some really positive case studies on certain ideas to use and ways that you can use an exact tactic or this type of situation in your own email marketing or your own social to tie in to build your list, really at the very core of it, you're going to want to make sure that content is driving everything that you do. And as far as the strategy behind that, the first case study that we're going to look at, I've presented this once or twice before, and a lot of people, when they see the site that it involves, they don't necessarily think it's ideas that they can replicate. But with what I'm saying as far as content being at the core of your list building strategy, I think you'll find that a lot of those same ideas are ones that you can use and put into practice. So keeping in mind that strategy and that content-driven approach is more than just testing this or putting this tactic here or putting your sign-up box at this certain spot on your site. It's deeper than that. So while we look at these pieces, please keep that in mind. And I'll be happy to kind of cover any questions. We'll try and pull some of those together after some of the case studies. The first site here, great AWeber customer, been with us for a long time. How many of you are familiar with Social Media Examiner? Okay, great. It's a site that launched October 2009. The founder, Mike Stelzner, he had a great background as an expert in white papers and marketing white paper content. He wasn't an expert in social media, and he will say as much. He has said as much freely. What he did in order to help drive the launch of this site is teamed up with experts who were very well versed in social media and who had their audiences. Maury Smith, Jason Falls, a lot of other very well-known social media experts are ones that he reached out to and said, hey, I'm trying to put together a site here that's going to be a resource that's going to really try and revolutionize the information around this topic. And he worked with them, their external experts, to kind of get the initial launch together for the site. He put a lot of time into getting quality content from these experts and used that to build up his own expertise. And I think, just quick show of hands, how many of you here run blogs? Okay, so almost everybody. How many of you actually have a fair amount of external contributors? All right, so very few. Most of you are doing the blogs yourself, correct? Does that seem like the way that it's kind of panning out with hands? All right. This is one of the keys for this case study here. Instead of trying to build this blog all on his own and not knowing every in and out of social media and kind of having that expertise level, he developed these partnerships with these other experts, these external experts, and used them to start building up the content for the site. What he didn't do was start selling right away. He went into this with a strategy that he wanted to wait until he had at least 10,000 email subscribers before he started to pitch anything through the site. And the reason he wanted to try and do that is because, as he talked with us in an interview, to him, email is about relationship building, right? And you guys know that from blogs as well. The visits that you get, the people who are coming to your site, not just one time, but the repeat visitors. If you're doing your blog well, if you're doing your site well, you're building a relationship. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a quick sign up and then an instant sale in a lot of cases, as many times as we might want it to be. A lot of times you need to get that level of trust developed. That comes from the content, that comes from the quality, that comes from the approach. And he decided right off the bat that he was going to get to 10,000 email subscribers before selling anything in his email newsletter. So a lot of us and a lot of people that I've gone over this case study with say, well, I don't really have the luxury of waiting until my email gets to 10,000 subscribers. Again, this is not necessarily that number to keep in mind, but it's the idea underlying that. You don't need to wait until your email gets to 10K to sell anything. I wouldn't suggest that to anybody. But if you are developing that core relationship and that trust with your email marketing and with your social channels as well, you'll find that getting a little further down the road is something that will help you pay off in a larger way as your site is more established and it grows. So here are a few of the tactics, and this again goes to some very simple, very direct methods that some of you are probably using, some of you may have considered. If you're using our system, some of these are very easy. The pop-up form, and I hope that you can see that okay. On the site, everybody I think here is familiar with a Lightbox pop-up form, right? 70% of the opt-ins for the site at this point have come from using that pop-up form. And I still hear from a lot of people, pop-up forms annoy me, the window, I would never use it because I can't stand them when I see them on other sites. If you haven't tested the pop-up form yet, I would definitely consider trying that. How many of you use such a form, or Lightbox or pop-up right now on your site? How many of you would say that that works very well? Okay. How many of you think it doesn't work well at all and maybe took it down? All right, so there's only a couple hands. So you guys probably want to try it again. The bonus incentive that he used for this sign up, and again, you may not be able to see it here. I'm sorry, the slide's a little bit small. The incentive for the sign up is another key that helped lift the response rate and the opt-in rate with the form. The confirmed double opt-in, which is not mandatory in our system, but it is one that we highly recommend, because a lot of times you're going to find that even if your list numbers are somewhat smaller because of lack of confirmed opt-in, if you have people doing double opt-in and not everyone goes through that second stage to confirm their opt-in to your list, you may very well find that your list is smaller. But what we found overall, over several years and several customers and a lot of feedback, is the quality definitely tends to be higher. And when I say quality, what I'm referring to is the engagement level of your subscribers. One of the keys for this site in particular, and why he's used confirmed and double opt-in from the beginning, and why he's such an evangelist and a champion for it, is because after he hit the 10,000 subscribers mark, he began using the newsletter as a way to sell ads, right? So it's an ad vehicle, it's income revenue stream, and he can charge more for advertisers because of the quality of the list, because the engagement is higher, and because he knows that these are double confirmed opt-ins. So that shows up in the engagement metrics. It shows up in his pitch to advertisers that says, look, these are people who definitely want this. They've gone through the extra step to get it. So your message, if it's going to be in our newsletter, is going to be relevant, and it's going to be going directly to people who really want it. They look for this newsletter, and I don't think there's a better pitch for confirmed opt-in than that. The social proof, this example down here, you've got Guy Kawasaki and Brian Solis, again, both very well known in social media and online marketing circles. Those thumbnails, the little images and those testimonials appearing right under the sign-up form, the subscription form. Social proof, you've probably heard a lot about that. Is everybody familiar with the concept of social proof? No? Oh, great. All right, well then we'll talk about social proof a little bit. Using third-party testimonials, for example, using a book review or quote. We'll see a couple of examples throughout here that sites that use those. These are ones that obviously you can't read, but words of praise for the site and for the book that goes with the site, with Social Media Examiner, the book launch. Having those thumbnails there, having those testimonials, that gives it additional weight so that most of your visitors come to your site and they say, well, okay, if Guy Kawasaki loves this site or loves this book, Brian Solis loves this site, loves this book, or Chris Brogan, as we'll see in some of these other ones, those are social proof examples. So testimonials, third party, if you have a ebook that has been reviewed, you get good comments from known authors or people in your field, those are examples of social proof that I would definitely suggest testing. How many of you use ebooks or white papers, downloads for your forms? Okay, not quite as many as I thought. How many of you have taken the time when you're putting those ebooks together, before you launch them, to send out a preview copy to a couple of people, experts in your field or well-known names or bloggers that you have connections with, and get those book jacket type quotes for your ebooks or for your info products? Swan. All right. Congratulations. That is an excellent idea. It's another idea that it's not on the slide, but if you haven't done it, I would absolutely recommend taking that extra time between when you're going to launch your ebook, when you get it done. Take the same approach that publishers do before they release it, before it gets, even into the New York Times book review. They send it out to a couple of well-known authors, so, you'll see quotes by Stephen King on a new book by another horror writer. And you get a few of those, you put those together on your landing page, on the ebook itself, on the emails you send out, any of your other channel promotions. That's a great example of using social proof and using those same people in a lot of cases. When that goes up, if that's on your landing page, they might put it on their blog, they might tweet it there. That's another way to kind of get that promoted. And then, of course, that ties directly into how the social media sharing makes this very easy. We'll see another example of that later on with the site on a back-end page after sign-up, but I know that a lot of you are probably familiar with a lot of different ways that after you sign up, register for a list, you get a thank you page, confirmation page that allows you to tweet or post to Facebook. These are all the same kinds of options that Social Media Examiner was using. And now we'll take a look at the results. From November of 2010, year before last now, to just this past November, the opt-in list for Social Media Examiner grew by 234%. We actually were so impressed by this growth and this strategy that we just put together a full case study and ebook on it. So that turned into its own ebook. It's currently, actually, as of when I had put this presentation together, it was at 117,000 and growing. It's now over 125,000. So it's growing at a crazy rate. And again, a large part of that is some of these different tactics, the opt-in form and things like that. But the content is really going to be driving that. So Site averages 450,000 visitors per month. And the newsletter ad space that I was talking about that he sells to advertisers is claiming up to 3,600. And a large part of that derives from the value of the confirmed opt-in and making sure that not just these numbers are the ones that advertisers are selling, but knowing that those subscribers are engaged. He won't tell us about his open rates, but that's okay. We know that they're pretty good. So this is something I'm just going to go through really quickly because the chart is not big enough for everybody to see it. But as far as effective list growth tactics, we did a survey with Marketing Sherpa not too long ago. It's part of the ebook that we have put together. And one of the questions was asked about the most effective list growth tactics. So I can barely even read it on here. Registration during purchase, online events, website registration page. Those are among the top, as you can see, the highest ones. And these are broken out by small, medium, and large-sized businesses. As far as small businesses, registration on purchase, online events, and a website registration page were the ones that really showed the highest growth. But I'm really interested in finding out from the audience here if you found some other areas that, whether they're covered on this chart or not, have worked best for you in terms of your own list building. Just give me a quick answer. What do you think has been your most effective list building strategy? Sign up in order to get the, so registration to get to the website?
Yes. It's opt-in, they receive the website content in the background.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got to give me an email address in order to get to the content.
Is that a Lightbox form?
Yes. There's a company called AWeber or something like that. And
Okay.
So, and I don't have an X, so they can't just click out of the box.
Okay.
They've got to do something. They give me my email address pretty much. But it's got information about what's on the site, why they should sign up, exactly they can unsubscribe, and the target things that they've got to give me their access.
Okay. Is anybody else using that, finding that working well? Great. All right, a couple. All right.
I would say giveaways. I do a lot of giveaways.
Okay. What type? Info products or contests?
Actual content, yes.
Okay. What's been your most successful contest?
Well, I have like a celebrity fashion site, so we're giving away clothing and stuff that readers want.
Okay. How many other people are using contests here as part of their list growth? How many people who didn't raise their hands feel they couldn't actually use a contest? It doesn't fit with their site or they don't know what to give away? Okay. So then there's another idea because there's a few people who seems like they could give it a shot. Another important thing to keep in mind here, again, and I just want to reiterate that the tactics we're talking about here are ones that you need to support with research and testing. So we try to look a little bit at research, but obviously the chart's a little bit small for this room. Testing, are you guys doing landing page testing? How many of you are testing landing pages? Great, that's actually a fair amount. How many of you are doing testing with your email? Okay, let me guess. Your number one test is subject lines? What's your number two? Email test, sorry. Okay, design and copy changes? Excellent. Are you doing a really solid job of analyzing those content changes across your emails for testing? Or are there things that you could probably use a little bit more help with? Great. There are two sites that I would highly recommend as far as testing, not just emails, but landing pages. Marketing Experiments being one. Marketing Sherpa has an awful lot of research, but the site Which Test One also shows a weekly test. Many of them are email, many of them are landing pages. You get to guess which one you think actually produced the higher conversion rates. You find out if you're right or wrong. It's often very surprising. I found a lot of times myself and many other people who've been working in conversion optimization for a long time get them wrong. So There are always surprises. There are always things that you can learn from those different types of tests, and that's a good place to find them. As far as what we're going to talk about here in 3 key areas to optimize for your own list building, landing pages is going to be one, and we're already doing some testing with that. Autoresponders. How many of you are actually using autoresponders, whether it's AWeber or not? Excellent. And the third is going to be social media. So I'm going to power through a couple of these different types of landing pages to get started. There are 2 types that I talk about here. One is more the before landing page. So whether it's your squeeze page, whether it's the opt-in with your blog, wherever the form is, basically, that you're getting people to your list right up front. That's generally considered the landing page, and as far as optimization, that's where a lot of people emphasize their efforts. That said, the after landing pages can be just as important in many respects. It's what they see right after signing up, so that's either your confirmation page, a special offer on the back end if you have a 2-page system, if you're using double confirmed opt-in. That's really an excellent place to test. And then there are also, outside of the landing pages themselves, if you're using a confirmed opt-in process, there's that opt-in email in the middle, the thank you or the confirmation registration email. So let's look at one quick case study from a site called socialtriggers.com. How many of you are any of you familiar with the site? Have you seen it before? Okay, great. So this is a little bit new. There are 3 tactics that I think were most effective in what Derek Halpern did for trying to drive his list growth on this site. And again, this is a blog that's been up, I believe it's been less than 2 years now. It's probably very similar to a lot of the blogs that you guys have. The subject is social media, it's expertise, they're info products. But there are a couple of things that he did that I thought were worth pointing out. One is using multiple forms and the proximity of those forms, keeping them close to the content. I don't actually know if this will show, but up here is the first form, which says enter your email to get free updates, and it says get instant access. This is kind of the header bar form, which was a little bit different than most sites had been using. A lot of sites are very familiar with this form here to get updates, the email form in the right-hand column on a WordPress site. It's easy to plug those in. He used a couple of other ones that have really made an impact. If you notice this here, this bottom line is the end of this blog post here. So at the very foot of the blog post itself, there's an email sign-up form there. There's another email sign-up form in the footer, towards the very bottom of the site. And basically what I wanted to kind of show with this page is a lot of people feel like if they put 4 pages or 4 forms on the same page, that it's overkill, right? How many of you think that that's just way too much? You'd never put 4 forms on and 1 or 2 is good enough. As we'll see, when he used not just the multiple forms, but he used the proximity, kept them close to the content, he kept the copy and the calls to action different. A couple of them are similar. So one it says join, one says sign up, one says get instant access, and another one says sign up. But he mixed it up a little bit, and then again used some of that social proof. The one that you really, I'm sure, can't see, but down here under this sign up form, this box right here, is a quote from Chris Brogan, New York Times best-selling author. Says, I'm definitely loving social triggers. It's another example of the social proof. So what happened with that? Proximity, keeping the forms near the relevant content, testing multiple different forms, styles, and different calls to action, using those social proof and credibility indicators. That was the growth of his blog list from April to September of last year. It's kept growing. He's just launched a new Autoresponder series. And in 5 months, he tripled the list. So when I said earlier that if you felt like maybe waiting until your list got to 10,000 before selling anything didn't seem like it was feasible, Here are a couple of ways that this list went from, less than 3,000 to over 10,000 in a matter of months. And that, I think for a lot of people, is a compelling argument to maybe try going beyond your comfort zone. If you feel that one sign-up form or maybe two sign-up forms is enough, put them in different places. Try 4, try 5, see what works. Put them around your content. See if it doesn't work. I mean, there's no harm in testing. Oops. Let's try that again. Varying the form itself, the call to action, and the locations was what he considered the biggest driver on this. In fact, he's talked a couple of different times about how adding those different forms, A, to the header, and then B, to the very foot of each blog post, were some of the biggest drivers that he's had for this list growth. So how many of you have the sign-up form at the end of each of your blog posts right now? 4, 5? Okay. How many of you are thinking about maybe trying that after you leave here? There we go. Well, if you do that and you're doing that with AWeber, I want to hear how it works because I want to get you guys in a case study here for the next one. So here's another quick test. Were there any questions on some of those? Either what he was doing with the site, some of the things that the tactics, or yeah.
It sounds like he had up to 3 places at one time.
Mm-hmm.
People opt in anytime. Do you know the stats on what was the first, second, third, and
No, I don't. That's a very good question. I don't have the stats on that. I mean, I talked with him, and it was kind of an overall. But like I mentioned, he had definitely suggested that the big drivers were the one up top across the top, the banner form, and then the one right below the blog post. But that's a great question, and breaking those out, I think, is one that I definitely think is worth a follow-up on.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about it. If you have, on my blog, there's a 468 by 60 ad on the blog post. Do you think it matters if that sign-up form is above or below? Does that matter at all?
It probably would. If you're trying to put that sign-up call to action right under a banner call to action, then you've got competing calls to action. It depends which one you think is more important to you. I mean, the only way to find out for sure is to test it, but if your banner is something that is a higher priority than the sign-up, I would be wary of putting those 2 different calls to action so close together. Any other quick question before we go? Yeah.
So after his list went up, 5 times in that period, however, my question is, did he, after testing and seeing where, like in the header and footer, where the sign form were, did he keep the site with all those forms on it still, or does he just have the main ones?
Oh yeah, it still looks like that now.
All of it?
Yeah, and the growth has been, it's like Social Media Examiner. I mean, these, I pulled these a couple months ago, basically, was putting the thing together before the holidays. This has grown more since then. I mean, they continue to grow because these tactics are the ones that are working. So, and I'm hoping that, as I mentioned, he's just launched a new Autoresponder series, kind of a new training series. So a lot of you guys said that you're doing autoresponders as well, whether those are training series or whatever you're doing with them. I'm hoping that, for next time, ASE East or something like that, we'll have some answers to these questions that have been mentioned here, as well as, some new case studies from how he's doing that. So, but right now, to answer your question, those forms on the site are still there. So those tests won, and right now he's sticking with them. All right, another quick test here, and this is from which test won. Lightbox versus a slide box. Right, so here's an example of a site that put together, and it's the site is a diamond site. It's a jewelry site. It's India-based jewelry site. One style of form had the light box. The other style had the same popover box, but it kind of hovered in, and it didn't blank out the screen behind it. So both of these were activated on the 4th product view that a visitor to the site accessed, and it was cookie based, they only got it one time. Which of these do you think produced a higher opt-in rate for the site? How many think it was the light box on the left? Okay, maybe half. About how many of you think that it was the slide box that came over on the right? Okay, maybe a little bit more on that one. Actually, the light box got 59% more signups than the slide box. So why do we think that would be? I mean, it's the same exact box, right? 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 More focus on the one with the light box versus the other one, which could be seen as more distracting, kind of getting lost against the regular site design. How many of you are using the kind of slide box on the right for your site? Okay. I would say light box is probably a good test. If the content is the same, see which one of those might get a little bit more lift. So to just recap briefly, the proximity, keeping your forms near the relevant content, like we saw with Social Trigger, Social Media Examiner, the variety, testing those multiple forms, those different styles of calls to action, and then the social proof and the credibility indicators, as we saw with Social Media Examiner on the first site. When we're talking about after landing pages, and we did a quick poll. I don't have the poll here in this presentation, but we did a quick poll on a webinar on this topic and asked people which landing pages of these two types were they more interested in emphasizing. And most people came down on the before landing pages, right? Which makes sense. That's the first one that people see. And when we're thinking about building lists, what we're thinking about is getting people onto the list, right? That first impression. The trick is with these after, quote unquote, after landing pages, is they're still part of that first impression, right? Because people will put their email into your form, they've clicked submit or sign up or whatever your call to action button says, and they're still there. They don't just magically disappear, right? They need to see what's next. Everybody kind of waits for that confirmation. And so what you have to do at that point, your job's not over. Your list isn't built right then. It's still very easy for people to have a bad experience, and then if you're using confirmed opt-in, they just won't bother. Or, maybe what they see there seems like it's very little value, and by the time that first email comes, they're just not really as excited about it, or whatever got them to sign up in the first place isn't going to motivate them to engage with the email itself. So delivering on your sign-up expectations and offers, we'll look at a couple examples of that. This first one, here's a opt-in page from Mixergy, which, is anybody familiar with this site? It's a site that kind of helps people who are entrepreneurs learn lessons from other startup founders. So you can see a couple of the logos on there: Groupon, Dig, LinkedIn, JibJab, Kiva. The authors of this site interview those entrepreneurs, they get their stories, and they use them through training products. So this is the first page. It's a very clean home page. So when you come to this site, it's basically got the pitch, the sign up, the submit button, and then that social proof, that testimonial down at the bottom. And then here's the confirmation page, right? So what you see on both of these is the sign up very much presents what you're going to get in the landing page right after you've signed up. It doesn't stop. It doesn't just say thank you. It sends you over to the confirmation page, which says right here what you're going to get. So it helps to set up the expectation for that email that you're going to get. It reinforces these founders. Okay, founders reveal their secrets on one, learn from proven entrepreneurs. So there's, Groupon, there's Kiva, they're those same experts. And then using the click here, it tries to engage you even further in the site. It doesn't just say, thank you, have a nice day, or look for the email. Take some time to customize that page. How many of you have, a standard thank you page that after people sign up, you use kind of the template model that says, thank you for signing up, check out, the email, thing like that, right? We have it, we offer it. It's great as a placeholder for people to use. I'm not going to complain about it, but I would say that as far as list building and doing some really dynamic things to kind of grow your list, if you have an opportunity to take that confirmation page and do some other things with it, do some custom things with it, like either a follow-up offer or some other kinds of redirects, that can certainly make for a much stronger user experience. We'll look at one here. Here's a great example. Wine enthusiast. Okay, so this is their banner sign up, right? Not my favorite example of a sign up form. It kind of gets lost in the page. That's why I carved it out here, but so be it. There's the confirmation page that you receive once you've signed up. And there's the confirmation email that you get when you've signed up. So once you've used the first form, you've put your email in, go into the confirmation page, you'll see that there's a follow-up form which asks for additional information. So what they're trying to do with the first name, last name, address, and those other fields is to increase the segmentation and increase the targeting of what they could send you afterwards. So which types of wines you're interested in, which types of deals. They use the top 100 best buys of 2011, a PDF, as an incentive to increase signups, something that a lot of you are already using. But see what they do here on the confirmation page and the confirmation email is they use the same copy in these bullets here in the confirmation email. So what you're getting throughout the process is a very relevant, very easy to understand offer. It sets up your expectations. It's not just a simple thank you. In the confirmation email and in the page, it tells you what you can expect, and it goes beyond what you get from the initial sign up, because let's be honest, what you see up top here doesn't really tell you what you're going to get on the email itself. So by the time I've signed up for this, I've gotten the confirmation page and the email, I know exactly what I'm going to get. I'm getting my free download. I'm looking forward to exclusive savings, new item updates, sale previews, and wine tasting invites. So if you have kind of a very bare bones sign up process that just takes, email or even just name an email and leaves it at that, and you've got a very basic thank you and confirmation page, there's a lot more that you could be doing. Even if you have, the type of ebook or incentive, you can use that download, you can use this kind of framing to make that subscriber feel like they know what they're going to be getting, they're going to be looking more forward to it, they're going to obviously want to open it more, want to click on it more, your engagement rates should go up, they're going to share it more, and that's really key to helping build out the list. Social media and email sharing. Which Test 1, site that we just saw a quick example from. After you've signed up, this is a pretty straightforward thank you page. It doesn't get nearly as deep as the wine enthusiast, but what it does do is link to an email where, my gosh, I wish you could see this better. What you see there are three options. The first is to kind of share this with your email addresses and your contacts. The other is sharing it on LinkedIn, so you can post directly to LinkedIn about signing up for the site. And the third is Gmail, so you can share that via Gmail. This is our own thanks for subscribing page for AWeber. So what you'll see here, it goes a lot deeper. Download your guide to standing out in the inbox. There are popular articles. There are more helpful email marketing resources. There's social sharing at the bottom. It gives you about 5 or 6 different things that you can do. So a lot of us know that when you get a confirmation email after you've just made a purchase, most of us are looking immediately for the receipt, right? Right at that point of transaction, that's when we're going to be most engaged. Right after your customers or your subscribers are signing up to your list, what you deliver to them on the back end is a great opportunity to kind of use social sharing, use email sharing, and to use a very rich experience to try and help set those expectations up and keep them coming back. Third, most important, never leave your subscribers at a dead end. This Wine Guppy page I found in doing some research when I was looking at comparisons with Wine Enthusiast. I have nothing against Wine Guppy, except that their page basically, after you've signed up, gives you an alert that says, thank you, you have been added to our database of email subscribers. with an alert that looks like a warning that you've just had an error. So that's great. That's that's a really exciting follow-up to get. I've been added to the database, and that, if that's how you want to start off your new subscribers, if that's the experience you want, so be it. The other one, which I think may in fact be one of our stock forms or another kind of stock form, just says, "Thank you, your subscription has been confirmed. You've been added to our list and will hear from us soon. Click here to return to the site." How many people have a landing page that actually looks something like that, a confirmation page? Oh, good, nobody. Excellent. Here's another example right here. We just looked at this, the thank you for subscribing. You've got a dead end on the left, or you've got something that gives your users a lot of different options. It gives them something that they can click to, something that is obviously relevant, that they want. They just signed up, they're there. You definitely want to have a page. How many of you have a page that has 4 or 5 different options on the confirmation page? Just a few. How many have maybe 2 or 3 options? A couple? Does everyone else have just kind of one option on their confirmation page, or is it just pretty much a standard thank you, you'll receive this list? It's more of a thank you. Take some time to use these after landing pages. It's no harder than developing any other page. They get overlooked so often, and even with the stock templates and things like that, it's easy to just kind of use the model that's there and rely on that. But I would heavily suggest, or I would strongly suggest, that this is an area very ripe for testing, whether it's through a follow-up offer, whether it's through a secondary form where you could ask for additional information, things that you can use to segment the information a little bit further. Whatever you're trying to elicit from your subscribers, this is a great place to do it because you've already got the email address. The friction is much lower here, and this is a page that puts you in a perfect spot to get some really good, useful, valuable information. Recapping that, delivering on expectations, talked about that. Testing your social media and the email sharing, the links, and then certainly the last thing you ever want to do is put a dead end in front of your subscribers right after they've signed up. Any questions on that? On those after landing pages? Or the before landing page? All right, great. Variables for testing. This here, again, I hope that some of you can see this. If you can see the top subject line is the number 1 test element for email. The message itself, as a lot of people here suggested, it aligns pretty closely with the research, was number 2. 72% for subject lines, 61% for messages. These are broken out by usage, right, on the top pink bar. But if you look closely at the dark red bar right beneath it, that red bar is for effectiveness. So while 72% of people are testing subject lines, the effectiveness level is actually only 35%. Similar for the message in the body, whereas if you look down at the very bottom of this chart, some of the tactics that are being tested among the least, like the from line, 26%, and mobile layouts and images, landing pages and target audiences, down around 30% to 15%, those are actually getting the highest effectiveness rates, right? So why is it that if 41% of people testing landing pages are finding it most effective, only 32% of people are using that to test? Because it's a pain, right? Because landing pages are things that we have to get together, we have to pull together different elements. Testing with a different system takes a lot more than it would if we just took the time, we're trying to get our emails out, we're trying to do so many things. Most often it comes down to either time constraints or resource constraints. And this is why subject line is 72%, because when you finished everything else in your email and you're getting ready to click, send, it's very easy to go, well, now I can test the subject line. But if you took the time that's invested in either the subject line or some of those different greetings or body or message elements and just set aside maybe 1 email or 2, put that same amount of time that you put into those elements and shifted it over to either a landing page or maybe the from line, you could see dramatically different results. And I think it's definitely worth taking at least one or two of your sends this year and making that shift to see what kind of gains you could get. Testing ideas for landing pages. There's a whole list of these, and everybody's going to get a copy of the presentation, so I'm not going to run by these. But I would strongly say that if you have a testing strategy, or you're looking to kind of find different ideas for what you would test to build out your landing pages, these are a few that you could start with. So certainly more info on the form page, incentives, a lot of people were using these, Lightbox forms, we looked at those, and then social media list building. We'll get to those shortly after we run through autoresponders. As you all know, or as many of you know, because many hands went up as far as using autoresponders, these are a great way to cultivate longer relationships. You can make your series as long as you need it to or as short as you need it to. How many of you are using autoresponder series of 3 messages or 2 to 3 messages? How many are using 4 to 6? Great. And how many are using 6 to 10 or more? Okay, great. So the majority are sort of in the 5 or more. That really seems to be kind of the sweet spot. We just launched a new autoresponder series with 5-part, and we've seen some very good results on that. We'll have some other case studies from a couple of other people that we're going to look at here as far as examples right now. But how many of you are using use the analytics in your account to determine the length of your autoresponder series? All right. So there weren't very many hands there. Did you just kind of decide on the number of emails based on the content that you had? Is that the way that I see some nodding? Okay. Have you looked at your analytics and found drop-off after 3, 4, 5 emails maybe and adjusted the series at all? Okay. If not, that's an ideal way to kind of take stock of your autoresponders. It might be another great idea to test. If you have a series that's 5 or 7, you could try testing that against one that's shorter, pulls up the call to action maybe a message or 2 sooner, or stretches it out even more. Autoresponders are a lot of times not tested as often as broadcast messages, because the key to the autoresponder is obviously to set it up and forget it. But I think a lot of times we overlook the opportunity in doing different tests with autoresponder series, and that could be, imagine the gain that you could get if you found that your series of 7 messages would actually produce the same or higher results in only 5, right? So if it was a week sooner, you could see that conversion lift, or that whatever your gains are, if it's sales or leads, come a week or 2 sooner in the, or a couple messages sooner in the series. Think of what that could free you up to do. You could put a totally separate offer, 2 or 3 emails down the line, stretch it out. There are a lot of different things that you could do and you could test, but it's just something that is worth taking another look at. Here's an example that many of you might be familiar with. Copyblogger, Engage, Offer, Connect. This series, since so many of you are familiar with this, I won't really go into too much detail, but this stretches from May all the way into August. So there were a number of different messages here. This one I found is a good example because it starts and it incorporates a couple of different elements. One is the design format and the initial intro. The offer itself doesn't come until, you see that it goes from May 4th, which is the first sign up, to August. They wait a couple of months before the first pitch is even sold or delivered. And then August 30th is just a very personal one-to-one kind of request for feedback. And there are a couple of different things that, if you're not trying some of these methods, like timing in terms of where your offer fits in the autoresponder cycle, or using that direct personal feedback, absolutely worth testing. Our own autoresponders, we have one, again, sort of like our landing page, our confirmation page, full of comprehensive info, and yet there's another customer of ours that does probably about as minimal as I've seen in autoresponder series. It's about 4 paragraphs and a link at the end and a signature. So how you're using these autoresponders can certainly vary, but it all goes back to the first concept of, is your content strong enough? And if it is, are you doing something different than your competitors are doing? If you're looking at how your autoresponder stacks up against some of the other ones there, what are they doing? What are their series like in terms of length? If you're doing a 5-part series, are they doing 7? Or if the content that they have is different, what can you take away from that? You don't necessarily even need the results, but the ideas or the kinds of concepts that they might use that you could innovate with are certainly worth looking at. And then for people here who are using autoresponders already, how many of you are using different segments for recipients and testing a couple of different autoresponders? Oh, great. I would love to talk with you right after this session. That is a method that I think is really powerful, and hopefully some of your tests with that can confirm some of those results, because it's one that's really underutilized, and I'd really like to see how you're using that. So last section, social media. Before I move into that, were there any quick questions on autoresponders? Yes?
See from back here, what was
Sorry.
the site that you just did the engage, offer, connect?
Copyblogger. Copyblogger.com. How many of you are familiar with Copyblogger, by the way? All right, great. Most of you are. If you're not familiar with it, it's an amazing resource, and especially if you're blogging. I don't just say this because they're a customer of ours. I've been loving them for years, and they do some really cool things. So learning from them is definitely a good way to go, from the content on the site as well as what they do, how they present it to their own audiences. So social media, I hear all the time that email, blah, social media, yay. I also hear the inverse from a lot of our customers and some of the ones who we've seen these list growth ideas. So I want to suggest that social media is definitely not mutually exclusive from email, and if anything, the two should be integrated now more than ever in a lot of different ways. We'll look at a few of them here really quickly. Keeping in mind that likes and tweets are really the first step, not the last. Those are good as far as kind of building a little bit more visibility, but as far as building your lists, you really want to try and connect people with your site and your email list, because if you have them in both areas, or if you have them in a couple different areas, say email as well as Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, obviously you're going to be able to do more with them because those are your most engaged subscribers. So using those tie-ins strategically and appropriately, rather than just kind of putting a share this at random at a certain place, either on your site or in your emails, is what we're going to look at now. Testing social media on the before and the after opt-in pages. This is an example from a site called Razoo, which uses the registration page, and you'll see that, hopefully you'll see, that the registration form on the left is kind of your standard opt-in form, but they also offer the option on the right to bypass that and then just connect directly with Facebook. A few weeks ago, we launched an application integration that allowed people to do a couple of things. One is to sign up directly for your list using their Facebook. Are any of you using that already? Great. I hope more of you will check it out. Another one that we did allows people to subscribe to your list just by using comments on a WordPress form. So I know a lot of you said that you're using blogs. If you're using WordPress blogs, which I'm sure many are, that plugin is available as well. So having those kinds of options to get people on your email list now using social channels where they don't even have to go through the extra steps. They can just click the connect button or click an opt-in checkbox. Those are great examples of before page options to get people to opt in socially. This one here, I mentioned earlier up front with Social Media Examiner. This comes in after you've signed up. This is their confirmation page. You'll notice they have fan badge, which is another great idea for kind of driving people back to your site. How many people are using badges with links to your site? How many people think that might be a good idea to test? All right, great. Liking their fan book or their Facebook page is another option. So here we see again the before and the after. Customizing your Facebook page. I'm sure most of you are probably doing this by now. Using the like, using the recommendation, and using that to kind of get the PDF download. How many of you have tested using downloads on a Facebook fan page? Not very many. Okay, wow. What's holding you back real fast? Yeah?
You do that through AWeber, I think, do it.
Well, we can't build your Facebook fan page.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The download part that opting in.
Yeah.
Plug in.
You should be able to, yeah.
That is another real.
Yeah. So for these Facebook pages, again, this is what I was saying, not just stopping at the like, using the recommendation and the sharing options that are there, using this as another way to kind of increase your downloads and put both of your lists together. Look at one quick case study that I'm really looking forward to the results on this. This contest is actually ending, I believe, tomorrow. It's Timex Malaysia. They had a contest where they've got the CEO is doing a marathon, and the goal here is you can win if you guess the time that he completes it in. So they use the Lightbox form, right, to kind of draw the sign-ups up into the like section, and then after liking the page, you'll see that they have a sign-up form right here to connect with the email, right, which is what gets you entered in the contest. So they hold the contest entry back behind the email wall, but they're using Facebook and email together to drive those sign-ups to both lists, right? So they're using a contest, they're getting likes, they're getting email sign-ups, name, email, and that information there, you know, their race time quiz. And they had, when I pulled this, they had over 8,000 likes on the page. I don't have the number of email signups just yet, but when this contest ends in a day or two, we're going to try and follow up with them. They're a customer. So we're hoping to find out what the results were, and I'll be happy to try and share those with you guys, as mentioned in future case studies. Using social tie-ins for likes and emails, going beyond just that click like on Facebook. The Timex contest was a great example. You can put those forms directly into your Facebook fan pages. So if you have those or you're using the Facebook Connect, consider that for building your list. If they had 8,200 signups right there, even if they got, a small percentage of those, 10%, that's, 820 new email lists. And it was going up even after that for the contest. So testing different yet relevant types of incentives, creating autoresponders just for your social lists. I'm not saying that they're doing that, but if you were to run a similar type of contest promotion with Facebook, and you were to set up a separate autoresponder series specifically for that versus the one that you have, that's another great test idea that you could see how that might work. And I think we are ending just in time. I think there might be like a minute or two for quick questions. And everyone who fills out a 10 on the speaker evaluation gets a free AWeber account for life. Did I mention that? Did I mention that up front? I don't know if I did. Did we turn the camera off? Okay. No, seriously, we have a minute or two for questions. If you have any, I think, please shoot them. Yeah. A lot of that will depend on the level of segmentation that you do and how you deliver that content. Sorry. Yeah, he had asked about if AWeber is going to be delivering dynamic content based on demographics or other kinds of segments, right? We're doing a lot of different things with our integrations right now. Our API is open source, and I don't want to turn this into an AWeber commercial. But if you guys or developers or a system that you have in mind, I'd be happy to talk with you about some of the things that we might try and do, because I know those are the kinds of ideas and feedback that we want to hear. So at the moment, I mean, I'd like to talk with you a little bit more about what you're talking about specifically and how we can do it. Are there any other questions about some of the ideas? Yeah.
What's your take on utilizing client acquisitions to help spread word of mouth and further build your list? So say the confirmation, email follow-up, share with your friends, and receive, 20% off your next purchase. Either they share it on Facebook, or they order an email, they can send them as a follow-up.
Yeah.
What's your take on that in terms of list building and how effective that is?
I think it's great. I mean, it works quite a bit. If you're not doing it, it's definitely one to test. I've seen case studies where those types of referrals with incentives, sometimes actually the referrals without the incentives work even better. So it's definitely a great idea, but it's one to certainly try and test. And, I think we've seen a lot of sites that use that very effectively. I can think of a couple of examples, as well as the one that I think it was Cisco used a test where the Starbucks gift card that they used as a re-engagement, as an email re-engagement campaign, did very well. Another one they used was white paper, and then the third part of the test was no incentive whatsoever. And what surprised a lot of people was that the test with no incentive actually won. So you would think that a Starbucks gift card would be one that would obviously be through the roof, but what they paid for that made the ROI lower. So definitely test it and see what kinds of incentives work or don't work. And yeah.
Would you suggest if to do that type of is based on immediate gratification of the next person's discount, or say like build up high referrals and receive points towards discounts on your future purchases?
Another good question. But here's what I want to do, because I want to get off because he's waving the time sign at me. Let me try and grab any questions out here in the front. I'll be here for a little bit. Thanks again, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you.